Welcome to UNCAGED. Today, we're speaking with Nina Sichtermann. Nina is the Senior Vice President of Sales Operations at Lidl US. And we'll talk a little bit about Lidl, but more about the broader retail sector going forward. Before we get there, Nina, I'd love to hear a little bit about you and your career to date.
Yes, happy to be here and happy to talk about myself. So let's start about telling my story and telling about myself. I am someone who doesn't like mediocrity, so I love a good challenge, and I love to put myself out there for a good challenge, which is why the retail world happens to be a great fit for me and for what I'm looking for. I generally think that everything is possible. And whilst there's a lot of people who say that, I do think that is the way. Does that make me sound like a bit of an overachieving freak? Maybe, but actually my point here is that I don't like to do it by myself. I'm very, very inspired by taking my team along. I love to push people and I like to listen and learn from them as well. I always think that whatever you achieve, whatever kind of result you want to aim for, you can never do it by yourself, and you have to be open and willing to listen to others as well. As I said before, this seek for challenge, this seek for looking for extraordinary results has pushed me all around the globe. I've worked and lived in 3 different continents. I've covered the retail world in all sorts of different worlds and positions.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a leader in logistics and the supply chain, in sales and in marketing, and I truly, really have embraced everything that comes with it.
I love the retail space. I've had the blessing of working with a whole bunch of retailers throughout my career. And I think the exciting thing about retail is just the pace of information and data and the expectations of the change and kind of moving at this almost real-time space that other industries talk about. But in retail, you really have to do it. But tell me a little bit more. You're almost a 20-year veteran really here in the retail and sales space. Tell us a little bit about what you're seeing out there right now.
Yeah, that sounds awful, doesn't it? I feel old now, but I wish that I'm not. So, I really call retail the real life business because, as you said before, it is so close to whatever is happening. It's so close to whether you have an economic downturn, you notice that in consumer behavior straight away. You also notice when people are preparing for public holidays and everyone suddenly starts spending because everyone wants to have a good time. So what's out there right now? Well, as we all know, we are in a bit of an economic downturn now. So then we have crises both on an economic level, but also on social levels, which puts us in a world where there are layoffs and there's labor shortage at the same time. So that makes it a challenging and very interesting environment as well, because you need to be very, very close to the customer to see what's really moving them. Luckily, retail requires you to do so. It requires you to be out in stores to see what's going on, to see whether people are buying or not, or what they're buying or not. And we're also in the middle of a technological change. So AI is everywhere, ChatGPT is everywhere. Everyone seems to know something about it. And there's a lot of fear that comes along with it as well. So you really have to be at the pulse of what's going on and know how to manage that and stay calm with it as well.
I hear you. I think that, I worked with a large retail group, although they'll remain nameless, but in the DIY space. And I think our first call every day with them was at 6:30 a.m. every day as they, reviewed the numbers and kind of got ready for the following day. And it does show you the demand and pace for being aware of what's going on at that moment. I mean, certainly retailers have come out of COVID and have faced some of these issues that you're highlighting, making sure that staff is there, people are working, probably managing budgets. I also remember, a big discussion over the last couple of years in the retail space for us has been the supply chain. How is that evolving and restructuring kind of for the next phase?
Well, it certainly has calmed down a lot. So we're not in that situation anymore where there was either total overstock or total out of stock. So it has calmed down a lot, but we're still in a phase where it's not totally back to normal to where it was before.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's certainly not what we've experienced in 2020 and 2021.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, Nina, I don't want to kind of dwell on the fact that you are an expert in this space, and there's no doubt that retail has unique characteristics, but it does require a level of passion to stick this one through for 20 years. So, tell me a little bit about kind of what gets you up in the morning and keep pushing on in this space.
What gets me up in the morning? It's that mix of being challenged, as I said before. What drives my passion is looking for extraordinary results. So,
Yeah.
and let me define extraordinary, because it's such a big word. So extraordinary either means it's outstanding, or it's something unexpected, or it's something that you totally did not define before. So it's just something that is out of the normal. And you need to be very hands-on. You have to be a very pragmatic approach when you have been in this business for such a long time, and when you've seen it from so many different angles. So you need a good mix of vision and seeking for innovation, and at the same time always stay down to earth, because it is retail. It's a simple business, and it's complicated at the same time because of the pace of it. So it's a good mix of pushing forward and having your feet on the ground at the same time.
Yeah. And I mean, let me ask you a question on that one, because I think about in my own career in the digital media world, and I've certainly worked with some of the companies that were retail related on innovation. I mean, certainly I would say retailers have had that focus to make sure that they utilize technologies as appropriately or as efficiently as they can to impact the experience of their customers. But I mean, as we go forward and you think about kind of the next phase of tech, what's your thought on the things, as you mentioned before, like ChatGPT and others? I mean, how are those going to really shape the customer's experience in the near term?
Well, if I knew 100%, I probably would be rich by now, but I can have a good guess. So it is to be seen. It's a big buzz right now. It's a big seek for excellence. Everyone wants to hop on, but at the
Mhm.
same time, the retail business is a business where you have to watch very well into where do you make your investments, what really drives your return on investment or your return on capital, and what is more nice to have. So I wouldn't expect the whole technological innovations to move into the retail world straight away. But things like automation, things like artificial intelligence in terms of making better predictions, or even having robots sweeping floors. I mean, we've seen all these trials and rollouts in different stores already, and I certainly do think that that's something that we will see more down the road. Right now, I do think that there's a good chance for robots to be used in store operations or retail operations whenever manual or repetitive tasks can be replaced by that. But as I said, it has to be seen, because right now it also requires a big deal of change management, and it's a big investment. So we'll see what happens.
And one of the things I think that's interesting with retail is the use of data. And you always hear these far too often used phrases like data-driven business or data-driven marketing or data-driven sales. But I mean, my experience in retail is, in fact, actually, there's a ton of data, and there's a ton. You have the transactional data, you have, foot traffic studies, you have the qualitative data, you have so much information that's pouring in. And I'd just be curious how you've seen the usage of that information evolve.
As you said, there's a ton of data. There's so much data that the challenge is more to how do you really get on top of all that data? How do you structure it? And how do you then make decisions on it? Or how do you deal with it in the first place? So that is where things like machine learning, artificial intelligence really, really can make a difference. But again, it's the beginning of a lot of developments in that area. But retail is, I think, is never short of data because it's so close to the customer and anything that's going on. It's more the question of how can we really effectively deal with that, and also how can we maybe deal with it in a different way, because to just use the data to make the same decisions like before is not really the best use. So it's to be seen what can we do with all that data that we have.
And, it's quite an interesting one. I mean, you've lived through this lovely period that we've all lived through over the last couple of years with the pandemic. And now here we are in 2023, and we find ourselves in quite an interesting economic landscape. I was just reading the other day about it, how in Italy, how the Italians are worried about the price of pasta. So, clearly the inflationary pressures around the world are having their impact. How are you seeing that change things, and how is that impacting kind of the planning for 23 and 24?
So inflationary levels, luckily, at least in some countries, are coming to healthier levels, which is good news. It's also good news for the consumers, and hopefully there will be more of a stable and calmer environment. The planning, well, it does affect your planning, of course. If you are at no matter what height of inflation, you need to take that into consideration. You need to see how far can you actually stretch your prices. And then there are items, like you said, for the Italians, pasta is like a core product. You can't just charge whatever you want to for the pasta or whatever you have to for a pasta, because it's such a sensitive thing that you need to be aware and careful with how far you actually stretch it. So if I've lived in Spain for a long time. If you do that with olive oil in Spain, you have a similar effect. If you do it with butter in Germany, people are all over the place. So there's always certain core items that you need to be carefully watching and see what can you strategically do with them, or should you be doing with them.
That's really interesting. So kind of like, if there may be a product that's literally like the lead product that you can't really even touch in a way. Yeah. And then see how you can work around it. Well, I mean, it's been a fascinating speaking to you, Nina. If someone wanted to reach you to learn more about what you're working on and talk about the retail space, where's the best place to reach you?
Best place to reach me is via my LinkedIn page. There's my email address on the LinkedIn page. So very happy to engage, and I'm usually checking regularly, so I'm easy to reach on that as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being on Uncaged. We've been speaking with Nina Sichtermann. She is the Senior Vice President of Sales Operations at Lidl in the US, and been talking about retail. It's a dynamic space, and really, I'd say for anyone who has been kind of going through, all of us, I guess, going through the last several years where we couldn't shop in stores because of COVID, and then suddenly everyone poured back into stores and there weren't things there. You can see how the space is dynamic and really at the coalface of our lives. And so, Nina, thank you so much, and we look forward to having you back.
Thank you so much as well. It's been my pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.